welcome. This is going to be our PLC. It's our first PLC, so we are double checking to see how you guys are doing. Again, my name is Brenda Brockland, and I've been teaching 20 years with 19 of them being in AP Chemistry. This being a PLC is an opportunity for you guys to talk with each other and find out how, some situations, some ability to spread your knowledge with each other and make sure that we're all feeling good about using the Insight program. All right. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at some things that are going to be with our AP Insight program for this PLC. Again, you're welcome to use your microphone, and you're welcome to also use the chat box over there on the right. And if you have any questions at all, just by all means, just kind of jump on in. You do want to double check that you have logged into the AP Insight website and also taken the opportunity to download the information that is down in the reading materials area. We're going to assume that you guys have some information with respect to the challenge area roadmap, and you're feeling pretty comfortable with getting the handle on the platform, okay? All right, so we're going to dive in. So we are looking to help you guys understand how to use the program, right? To implement it with your instruction, to make it feel right for you, to make sure that you're being able to just insert it where you want it and be pleased with your results. So today, the hope is that you can go ahead and incorporate the assessments, that you understand also how to use those performance tasks, and that you can engage with us, whether it's now or throughout the school year, on the share area of AP Insight. Okay? All right, so the very first thing that we are looking at is how can you use it to assess and correct student struggles. And I'm going to let you guys just take a moment to think about that. And have you guys had some opportunities to ponder how you're going to do it? Or if you've even started using it?
I have not started using it yet.
Okay. And admittedly, I haven't either. Not in my class, at least. I used it for the pilot program. No, you haven't as well? Okay. All right. So we're going to try to take a good look at the challenge area. We've selected one that I think you guys are going to like. We're going to, again, look at those building block quizzes, what the reports are going to help you with, and what to really do with them. Take a look at a specific performance task. And, again, do a bunch of Q&A. Okay, and again, for those of you who have a microphone, that's great. You will see that some of our colleagues are typing over in the chat box, so just kind of pay attention to them as well, all right? Oh, look at Catherine. Katie is on her way. She got through her first one. All right, so right now you're just going to pick an answer, and in the chat box, if you would, just enter how you're doing with respect to your progress with AP Insight. So A, yep, you're good. B, you've started a little bit. C, you know it. Or D.
By the way, can I be heard?
Yeah, who's that?
Oh, okay, it's Esther.
It's Esther. Hey, welcome. Good.
Oh, thank you.
Brenda, I was here last week, and I think Elaine was aware that whether it's my Surface or my other computer, I don't have any quizzes or tests. It comes up as white, or it comes up with the name of the company that's doing the platform. And I forget what that
Okay.
is. It I forget that it's not Adobe. It's another. Elaine maybe can remember the name of the company. Um, and
Okay.
and I'm supposed to contact Heather, I guess.
Yes.
So if I
Um,
just email Heather, is it Heather Johns?
I think so. But honestly, if you just send an email to the College Board, apinsight@collegeboard.org,
Mm-hmm.
Elaine will pass it to the correct person as well.
Okay. Because to my knowledge, that's the only thing I can't access, which of course I've wanted to access for equilibrium. Okay, and thermo.
Of course. Of course. All right, so it looks like we have a good mix. We've got some people at A's, they've gotten really a good handle on it, some people with C's, and some people also with D's. So that's exactly what we're thinking, and again, we're going to use this to help everybody feel more comfortable with it. So we're going to go ahead and we've made up this case study. We've got Mrs. Adams, who happens to be teaching AP Chem for her second year. She's still relatively new with only 5 years. And she, is starting to think about her equilibrium unit. She knows that she's had some students struggle. They were able to explain the definition, but were not as able to use K and Q or to make predictions by comparing them. So we've selected equilibrium today to help you guys out. All right. The very first thing you're going to see here then is on slide 9 here. What I'd like you to do is to just take a look at these sample questions and just see. What I want you to think about is you're going to try to answer the question and also try to figure out what areas the students have issues with these questions.
Yeah, I'm still wondering if it's still for some of my students last year that I thought were going to do much better. I'm just wondering if it was they just needed more time, and I haven't pushed them enough to complete things very, very quickly. I've given them too much time on their normal quizzes and tests.
Mm-hmm. It'll be a good sense as you're doing the practice questions out of the AP Insight, because the nice thing about it is the questions are lengthy as you look at each of those building block quizzes. So if you can attempt to get them to sort of read through those a little bit faster, I think that that will help with their time. Did they have issues with the free response or with the multiple choice, do you think?
It was the free response.
With the free response, yeah.
Even though we were given 15 more minutes of time, I think this year, yes, 15 more minutes. They still felt very pushed.
Sure. We noticed when we were scoring that a lot of students just really wrote too much. They were unable to identify when to just stop writing or to really make their answer more concise. So you might want to work on that as well, which is not necessarily something that Insight offers, but with the rubric for the Insight questions, that might be useful. All right, has everybody had a chance to look at these two questions? Mm-hmm. If all's gone well, you have question 21 as letter C and question 22 as letter D. So what kinds of areas might your students be having issues with this challenge area?
Can you go back to that slide?
Of course.
Thank you.
So this happens to be LO 6.6.
And you said the answer to 22 was?
The answer to 22 is D.
Thank you.
Sure. Maybe your students don't have any issues with this question, huh? Like with this concept?
Okay, I'll be
All right.
the student that has.
What's with your students?
I'll be the student that has an issue with D, with 22.
Okay. And how so?
Okay, because when I think of K, I'm going to think of being products over reactants, and I'm not going to understand why the CO and the H2 are both equal.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree also. I think the answer is B.
I agree. All right. You guys are correct. B it is.
So B is the answer for 22?
I think so.
Yes.
I think I read it too fast because it's a 1-to-2 ratio between carbon monoxide and H2. So more hydrogen gas will react than the carbon monoxide will. So B should be correct.
And it's C for number 21?
Yeah, that's what I have written down.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the student
All right.
thinks, right? The student thinks it's C?
What do you mean by that?
You said, is the correct answer to 21 C, or is that what the student thinks the answer is?
That should be the correct answer.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to jump over to the next slide.
Thank you.
So we've decided 22 is B as in boy.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So these are the learning objectives, again, which is LO 6.6. And 21 is an excellent example of how the students need to understand Q and how it's changing as the temperature changes, which then affects the value of K. And of course, the two science practices are what the students need to have skills in. Okay? So what areas, oh, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, maybe I read slower than other people. I wish there was a way we could just go back without disturbing the whole group.
Well, you can download the presentation,
Oh,
if that's
okay.
helpful at all.
Sure. Yes, that'll be helpful. That's all.
Okay.
Thanks.
So larger type.
So as you think about those multiple choice questions, are your students struggling because of the content, or the skills, or the learning objectives? At this point, you actually also have a handout under the reading materials that if you want to open that, it's this same question, but it might give you a means to sort of brainstorm some ideas. So would anybody be willing to share what struggles their students are having in this area?
are we to be looking at the participant handout now? The one with the questions on that we just saw?
Yes.
Okay.
And that, again, is just a way for you to brainstorm your ideas or maybe jot down ideas that other people have that would be useful to you.
Back when she was in her, when they were apart. She went out from her, she went with the homework, went out and that's what it was.
I want to see.
Whole thing was just
Okay. So does anybody have any struggles that they think that their students have with this challenge area?
Well,
Okay, you guys might, oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, when I'm still looking at this question and this question 22, and I'm saying, you know, a lot of the problems in the textbooks are a little bit easier than this. And then if you have one mole, and let's see, you have 1 mole of each. Okay, and then you pump it into a 2-liter vessel, what's going to be true? So you started with a mole of each, but the ratio in the balanced equation is 2 hydrogens to 1 carbon monoxide.
Mm-hmm.
I think I need a refresher. I don't do this in the fall, and I tend to forget it from year to year, I think.
Okay.
I'm still not clear. And I think that's the kind of thing that the kids do too. It's like they understand the basic, they could set up a basic K statement,
Mm-hmm.
but they get tripped up on, okay, this is twice as much as this, and now if I put it in the equation, it's half as much, and sort of, you know, quickly read over it and get the wrong answer. And I'm just still looking at that, and I don't work well at all under pressure. So I would have to sit down probably later this evening, look at the question, pull out the chapter and look at it. But if I'm having that kind of issue, then what are the kids going to do? They're going to pick the wrong answer.
Sure, of course. And that really then becomes part of the skill, right? The applying science practice 2.2, those mathematical routines, utilizing that stoichiometry, which Linda is also pointing out over in the chat box. I absolutely agree. Yeah, and that is hard. So what we're going to do is sort of refresh our memories. Why don't you guys go to the AP Insight page, and we're going to find the guide to the challenge area for this Explain Equilibrium section, which, if you remember, is under the tab Prepare. And the hope will be that you can all get it and open it.
There.
Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you want us to open under the Prepare?
Correct.
Big idea for
Right.
4?
Right, it's actually 6. It should be 6.
Okay. Which one?
So big ideas, you're going to go to Explain Equilibrium. So the very first one.
Okay.
And you should be in the Prepare tab with Guide to the Challenge Area. All right, so for us, if you scroll through that guide, right, you can see under Building Block Definition, which is on page 2, some really nice descriptions of the learning objectives, and some relationships to some of the other areas and concepts of the curriculum framework, which also continues down onto page 3 for that first building block. And you can see then in building block A that that really is where students would need to be able to take that mathematical routine, which is in fact our stoichiometry, and then relate it to our equilibrium. So that gives you a nice space to sort of decide like which building blocks do you want to use and if they're going to be useful specifically for your students in your classes. All right, so now that you have that, right, so Mrs. Adams looked at this practice test and decided, yeah, she thinks that those kids are going to have an issue with those questions. She wants to focus on that building block 6.6, but in letter A. And notice that, again, just reiterating that the students will develop understanding that equilibrium occurs in a closed system when the rate of forward reaction equals the rate of reverse. And also that the constant gives the ratio of concentration of reactants for a particular equation at a given temperature to products to reactants, excuse me. So at this point, do you have any questions with this building block? And again, this blue box means that you can take a look at the handout and jot things down if you'd like. Or you can, send us information through the chat screen. And Linda is pointing out that it is linked to building block 2. Absolutely, I agree. We're going to just stick with building block A, which is pages 2 and 3 of your guide to the challenge area. Okay, so you might not have any questions or be willing to share, and that's totally understandable. What I'd like you to do then is, right, we're going to attempt the building block quiz and see how you guys are doing. And so if you want to go ahead, there are actually 4 questions. Again, if you downloaded the presentation, it'll make it a little bit easier for you because I don't want to click through too fast. But we're going to take a look at what that quiz looks like. And I have them here in the PowerPoint to just make it a little easier for everyone.
PowerPoint.
Would that be under the Assess tab?
Yes, it would be under Assess. And under Assess, if you scroll down, the View Assigned Building Block Quiz.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, and this is why if you can download the presentation, it'll be a little easier because that is a really tiny font.
So we want we want B, shifts in equilibrium.
We're doing A.
I'm sorry, equilibrium
It's
conditions.
okay. Yes.
These aren't in any order. They're sort of scattered with B's before A's and things.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. That's the first time I've ever noticed that, is when I was looking at these particular quizzes. But it might just be because people have started using the program now that they came out of order.
Hmm.
All right, so as you look at this first question, right, here's your quiz. What letter would you give it? And again, you can type in the chat box if you prefer.
At 12, you reached equilibrium.
So for this question, I believe it should be answer B. Does everyone agree?
Yes.
Okay, I've got one yes. Great. All right, so we're gonna, and again, oh, I'm sorry?
I agree.
Great. So we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna go on to question 2, and again, start thinking about how those students might be struggling with these. Here's question 2. All right, for question 2, I have A. Does that seem right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think one of the hardest parts of this one is just the whole concept that students are really having to look at 3 separate solutions being altered and come up with their answers over on the side there. All right, we're going to look at number 3. And this one a little faster if you're good with math, but remember that the students are not going to have their calculators for the math section. And I have letter C. Okay? All right, one more.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a second.
Wait a second.
Somebody else had a question, so I'd like to hear what they're asking.
Oh, sure. I didn't hear it. I'm sorry. Did someone have a question?
Well, I'll ask. You think it's C? What
Yeah.
does that math look like? Am I on the same question? I'm on question 3.
Question 3 should be CO2 plus
Yes.
CF4.
Okay, so if you're reversing the reaction, it should be,
Yes.
The K should be 1 over the K. So that would be 1
Right.
over 1/2, which would be 2. And then since
Correct.
you have half of the amount, it should be 1/2 of 2. So wouldn't it
No,
be?
it would be the square root of 2.
Well, you're right.
So you would take the coefficients and utilize the powers.
Oh, yeah.
And the square root of 2 then would be 1.4.
So it's square root. Okay.
Correct. And that's exactly where the kids have issues as well, so I'm glad you said that. All right. Good. So question 4 then, kind of a similar idea.
Okay, so it has this loss, so flip it, which means 1 over. Square it, so it's
And again, remember the kids don't have calculators.
that's square root. 3.8 squared. 24, 67.
All right, so this one, you should have gotten letter D.
Okay.
And that's because you needed to take the first reaction and reverse it, which makes our K value 100. Oh, 10.
10.
Sorry, yeah, 10. And take our second one and double that reaction, which means we're actually going to square the K value, which it's kind of by, about 4. So 4 squared is roughly 16, but a little bit less than that. So 14 would be all right. And then that times 10 would give us the answer to D.
Yep.
All right. Good. So did you guys see any other struggles that the students might encounter?
It's good advice there to let them know that they could round when they don't have a calculator instead of trying to multiply 3.8 times 3.8 by hand when they're not used to doing that. And then that they could pick the closest answer because those answers are all far apart. But if the answers were closer, they might not be able to do that.
That's true. And I would then tell my students also, like, if the math is too challenging for you, circle it and come back to it, because you may very well be able to solve it, but you feel rushed. And it's just better for you to, spend some extra time elsewhere, come back to it when you're feeling not as rushed, you've got more of the test completed, and then can do it. So, all right. What we want to do then is, again, just review, like, as you're thinking about each of these, it is going to tie together to the curriculum framework. the board has really attempted to put together questions that are useful and definitely relate to what's occurring with the actual test and exam as we look at it. So you can see that although this is supposed to be LO 6.6, it does in fact include LO 6.1 as well as 6.2. And then same thing with our skills, those science practices. Even though we had only 2 listed, it's going to again draw attention to all of the other ways. And Katie, you're absolutely right with the struggles, right? The wording is challenging. There is a lot to read for every single question. And what I tell the students to do, and here's you know, a plus as well as a flaw. If you do the Insight program online, you of course end up with the kids having to sort of scratch paper pencil without being able to write on the question. But a question like that where they are doing a lot of math, I actually like to do the paper version. And that's mainly because I want the kids to be able to write on it and circle, especially when that language is really challenging, and when you're, you know, sitting down and trying to do a lot of that mental math, which Linda is also pointing out right now. I do have my kids do quite a bit of mental math or just paper pencil math, just because I know that, you know, the first thing that they want to do is they want to pick up their calculator and multiply 2.2 times 2. So to try to wean them off of that a little bit. All right. Now again, this is really tiny typing, but this is what you then get. So if you haven't had a chance to look at your sample reports, your quiz reports rather, this is what you can see. And if you look down towards the bottom on that right-hand side, you're going to see that we've got roughly 8 students marked in the green, but above them a student is in yellow, and above them a student is in fact in red. That gives you at least a feel for which students you really want to focus on. And with a class like this, I don't know that and maybe you guys tell me, but I haven't sat down and then confronted the whole class with any issues since most of them did really well. I'd probably pull the student aside who is in red and maybe check on them individually. And Katie, I agree. I loved your idea of being able to reuse the paper, but using different separate answer sheets. How would you guys handle that with a class like this? Would you talk to the whole class, or maybe also just talk to the one student? Okay, so if you guys are paying attention over to the chat, right, again, Linda's saying that, yep, she would probably have a private conversation just because it's a couple of kids in the class. And Katie is going to be addressing her whole class just because she, you know, had some issues. And again, those issues might, at that point, be anything, especially with your first use of some of the quizzes. They really are going through a lot of mental math. They're going through a lot of reading. They need to put it all together, and that's what these quizzes are going to help them do in addition to help them with all of those concepts. And this is really the area that we want to be thinking most about. Jean, I love that thought too, to just let everybody know, you know, if they need help as a class, to just tell them that they are always free to come on in. I love that. I've also told the kids too, you know, maybe you're nervous about talking to me. Like, I'm comfortable with you also talking to a friend, or if you got, you know, a 4 out of 4, maybe you can offer to your friends, like, just to restate the understanding. And so these building block quizzes are really going to be sort of the area that helps you, because again, it's going to help drive you a little bit. It's going to help you focus a little bit more. And that's going to help you with your instruction. Yeah, Katie, I agree, right? The building blocks are nice in the sense that they do have a little bit of a POGL appear to them to a certain extent. But they vary a little bit as well, which is nice, I think, for the students also. All right, so I know a few people are still typing, and my understanding is that there may have been a bit of a concern with time. I guess some of the participants were told that they were supposed to just go until 4 o'clock, so I guess 5 o'clock for some of you guys. And others were told that it was going to be an hour and a half. I am going to go ahead and just move on and see again some other areas that will help you sort of drive where you guys want to put these. So right now, again, we're in the next steps, and you guys had some great ideas. I want to point out under ACT as well the next steps guides. Oops, I accidentally clicked, sorry. The next steps guides. So if you want to go into ACT on the Internet Insight, and pull down the next steps guide, which I am doing as well. And you've probably noticed, right, the next steps have the teacher and student version. The student version is blank, and the teacher version has some, some answers or just kind of base thoughts on, not necessarily answers that are for this, like the students will write down, but answers to sort of help you process, like, what might they say. All right. And again, if you have it uploaded, what I like about it again is the students can just sort of point out their difficulties. They can kind of take a time, like take a step back and just say, like, okay, what do I need to do to fix where I'm at? And two, to think about, like, even if I'm doing great, what can I do to ensure that I'm going to keep doing great the next time that I see questions similar to these? So encourage them, like, even if you got a 4 out of 4, like, it doesn't hurt to just revisit what's occurring. It doesn't hurt to explain it to a neighbor. It doesn't hurt to, do all of those sorts of things. So you do have in the teacher version, right, the reflection, sort of some discussion topics that you can have with the kids. And again, those discussion topics are listed for the teacher actually on the second page, if I am scrolling down correctly. Right, so some discussion topics on the second page, and then some more sample answers that your students might give you. And we were just talking about this in our district, that, I mean, this is really, the area that we keep forgetting is what do you do after you get all of your data, and how do you then fix it? So. Okay, Jean, I'm not sure what your question is. How to get back to tabs on Insight? Oh,
Right.
I hit backspace. Were you in the quiz area?
I was in the quiz area, and when I go back, it says the document expired, and so then I'm off the Insight page. Maybe, I guess you could just go up to the URL tab, maybe drop off the words assessment, and so, I don't know. There should be
Okay,
a home
are you?
button.
There is a home button. Are you still on the quiz page?
Yes. I see the
Great.
home
Do you
button.
see? Okay, great.
right under AP, is that where it is?
Correct. So if you just go ahead and click that, that'll take you right on back.
Okay, it's having problems going back. It's just spinning and spinning and not going back. There, it finally went back. Okay, so
Okay.
then we were on
If
ACT.
you, yeah, so if you click on challenge areas,
Back to 6, explain equilibrium.
exactly. You've got it. All right. So what I want you guys to do now is to make sure that you have at least one building block quiz that you feel like you'd be willing to use with your students, right? We've looked at just building block quiz A, but there are clearly a couple of others to pick from, which are B and C. And so maybe you'd like to just take a moment, right? You want to try to just look to see if one of those is more effective. Maybe you like one better. Maybe you like all three, and that's great. But I want you to consider which one you want to use. And if it turns out that you really don't want to do this challenge area, I do understand, but try to stick with this. If you guys haven't heard, like, equilibrium is really just the hardest area for the students. So try to find one, even if it's not in this 6, equilibrium, you can do one of the other 2 that are also there. So take a moment and do that. And spend some time perusing, right? You can look at the challenge area information.
So are we still on the ACT tab?
If on the ACT tab you were just downloading the building block next steps guide.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, I see there's a teacher one and a student one. I see.
Correct.
Okay.
And so at this point, I'd recommend looking back at that first document we downloaded, which was the guide, the building block, or the challenge area guide, and looking to see which of those building blocks might be most useful to you and your students.
One thing I think is, for me personally, like the building block definition for building block A, it would be helpful if it was more specific, when the equation is multiplied by a factor or reversed, the value changes. So now I've still got to get out my book and look up how those changes are to verify whether I'm multiplying or squaring, dividing or square rooting.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't say that there.
So you're saying a better guideline for you as the teacher, or?
Right.
Okay.
Because, okay, we're all teachers, but, well, this is really out of context for me, as I said earlier, so I don't know. Hopefully other people are better at remembering than me, but I was just, for example, I divided instead of took the square root. So,
Sure.
There are other processes where you divide instead of take the square root when you do like Hess's law or something. So it's easy
right.
for us. It's easy for us to get confused too. And if this is supposed to be professional development for us, we might assume that we're Mrs. Adams, who's only taught it once before, and we easily get misled, or else we're just, not on top of our game today or whatever.
Right. Right. And, sadly, this professional development is a little bit more based on just trying to get the Insight program into your classroom and making sure you're feeling comfortable with it. But of course, that's why we offer the workshops as well, if you want more content areas. But you're right, it would be really great for us to maybe stick that in there, and I will mention that to the team.
Yeah, because I've been to 3 of the week-long workshops over the last 20 years, and it's September, and I'm not even thinking about equilibrium yet, so I'm just rusty on it. And if I'm going to look at this even just to evaluate it, it would be helpful to just have exactly what they're looking for there. But maybe
Sure.
Maybe that's too much because we have 1,000-page books, but you know, and maybe if I had just reviewed to teach this, I wouldn't be having these questions.
And so just so that you know as well, if you look at the quizzes, so even though right now that's not listed there, you can open up the quizzes and look at the Proctor edition, which does show the worked out answers, which will help you at least maybe refresh your memory unless we get that changed. So that's another place to look as well.
Oh. Where is that Proctor area?
Sure, that is, again, if you go back to ACT, excuse me, I'm sorry, if you go back to Assess, and again to the View Assign Building block,
Okay.
when you click on preview of that quiz, you do have options of the student document versus the Proctor booklet. The Proctor booklet will actually have the answers in it.
Oh.
And it will also offer the work for you so that you can check and make sure that you feel comfortable with the content as you go over it with the students.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's fabulous.
Great.
Now, the Proctor booklets come up as, our time is up.
Sorry.
The
Yep.
Proctor,
Sorry, I'm at school.
the Proctor booklets come up as a file that you would download. How do you recommend organizing all this? Do you have any hints?
Organizing. You know, I have been working on that myself, yes. I have a file of AP Insight, admittedly, that is, it's organized just by common assessments. So each of them says, like, this happens to be 6, and it happens to cover sort of the first area of equilibrium, which falls sort of under category A. So I wrote them as 6A. And then, because it was building block quiz A, that's how I labeled it, is I labeled it as BBA for building block A quiz. And that kind of at least kept me a little bit organized, but admittedly I can't say that it's as organized as I might like, but it'll at least get us started.
Is that something that Insights would consider, like sending us a whole file that we could print out, put in a notebook and refer to, or have in an organized file on our desktop?
You know, I can ask. I think, and I don't really know, I'm just going to kind of speak out of turn here, but I feel like they may, like knowing how we are as teachers, we may wish to put it in our own organizational system. But I will absolutely ask about that for you.
Okay.
And there's some great conversations going over here again in the chat box. We've got Linda starting in on some acids and bases that she's going to be using actually, I guess, tomorrow. She does her units a little bit differently, so I love that she's sharing that information. And, yep, Michelle, do not feel bad. I'm not doing that either, and you're not crazy, so totally understand. So that is really great. All right, so hopefully you've given some thought to where you might use one of the building block quizzes. So I am going to direct you to how to gain, you know, how to ensure that your students are going to have enough knowledge to take that quiz, so that you're sort of building up to taking the quiz. So if I can direct you over to Teach, we're going to go back into AP Insight. We're going to go back into the Teach tab. And again, you want to check that you're looking at building block A. So if you scroll down, oops, I was scrolled down a little too far myself. You're going to see that there is a student progress sheet. And again, you can download both of those. One is, again, the teacher version, and the other one is, in fact, the student version.
We're under building block A, under the Teach.
If you, it's actually just above where it says select a building block. There's a track student progress box.
Okay.
And there's 2 documents for student progress sheet, one for teacher and one for student. All right, and this is one of my favorite things to use with the students. And that happens to very simply be because it's got pre-written statements. They're not exactly doing calculations. Some of them refer to calculations, some of them require it. But what's really great about them is that the students are then trying to decipher whether that statement is right or wrong. So when you hand them the student progress sheet a little earlier in the unit, you can find out if they've taken a chemistry course before, what they remember. You could do it later in the unit and find out what they understand so far. I know some teachers have said that they're actually bringing it up little by little of the unit so that they keep going back to some of them. But what a great way to have your... Yeah, that some of the teachers are actually going back and they use like one statement early in the unit and then another statement later on and then another sort of growing through the unit. So it allows a lot of flexibility because it's a pretty simple sheet to use. And of course, with the teacher version, you've got this lovely answer key for you, again, in case you weren't exactly sure how to get the answers. Or to just double check that the explanation that you thought it was is clear enough. You know, like I tend to find myself like babbling, and I might even be doing that now, I'm not sure. But, you know, to just say like, okay, you know, pull myself down. Is the content that I'm providing the students clear enough? Like, am I saying it clearly? So that's nice about the student progress sheet. This is going to help too with your... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. So do you have the students do these for homework then? The student progress sheets? You actually print them off?
Yeah, I do print them off. I don't send them home. You know, like I don't, I like to use them as discussion areas. So I'll have the kids just maybe sit and read a certain statement or two. And then, you know, after they've made a decision as to whether they agree or disagree and they've written out some reasoning, have them actually, in my classroom, the students are in pods. So have them discuss in their pod like what they thought and if they agree on what they thought. So that it leads a little bit more to that discussion piece because, again, I really enjoy when students are conversing with each other. So I try to, and I've even admittedly like cut the pages together because I'm anal like this. So I'll cut the pages apart and tape them together so that they see like just certain sections to kind of just pull them through, get them thinking about their own thinking, you know, which is metacognition, and making sure that they're grasping the various concepts.
And so what do you leave out that you used to do in order to fit this in?
You know, I have honestly done a little bit of flipping my classroom, and I like that because I'm able then to make, to have the lecture just be the key concepts of what I want them to, get out of it. Or, like, again, I really enjoy doing a lecture where there's conversation. So in this way, when I'm doing the lecture and I'm just talking at my computer, it goes a lot faster. So they don't have to listen to me as long, I guess you could say. And then, so that gives them that at home. And then we do this in the classroom, which then helps them, grasp the concepts. And you're absolutely right in sort of, pondering like, what do I give up, or do I need to give something up? So that's where I went, just because I felt like that would be the best. I mean, does anybody else have suggestions for that? Yeah, Linda's pointing out that she uses them for like an exit ticket, which again is a great way, because one of them could easily take, just a couple of minutes for a student to do.
If you cut them apart.
Exactly. Or even if you have them, like I don't do this myself, but I know a teacher does. What does she call them? She calls them bell starters, and she will put the question, right, the actual statement on the board, and just have them, they sit down, they read the statement. They're not necessarily writing anything down, although I prefer the writing down, but they comment, agree or disagree. Start out the class with a discussion, so it reviews what they did the day before, and then she dives right into the lesson. So that's another great way.
That sounds good.
And Katie, I love that you're able to already hear, right? Because when the students are having these conversations, you're really getting an opportunity to hear when they're having misconceptions as well. They're blurting something out, and another student is like, wait, I didn't think that was what it was. Or a student is like, oh, is that what it means? So you get a chance to kind of catch a little bit of how they're doing. And Linda's pointing out as well, right, that she sometimes will reduce the text-based homework, right, so that she can remove some of the textbook problems and instead insert some of these activities. So she's doing a little bit more balance between the two, which is another great. And Jean's just asked if Linda uses the questions as homework, and she's, I believe, answering, because it looks like she's typing. And so, I mean, again, if you've got other ideas for sort of building up, I mean, that's what we're doing right now, right? Is just sharing with each other different things that might work. By all means, feel free to jump in. All right, so Linda's pointing out that she does give them sometimes as homework, sometimes in her classroom. Katie's going to actually give a little bit for homework over this weekend. Gina is definitely a little tight on class each week. So yeah, I mean, Gina, I would maybe say then, if that's the case, to use maybe just a little chunk of each of these, or again, maybe assign like a few of them and just have like a quick pair share as the class starts. Right, so any way that, you can use them if you want to have the students just take them home then, and then that way they can have the discussion in class while you're there, but they did the thought process at home. That might save you some time. Okay, so I know Jean has asked where the POGL type activities are on the site. And I'm going to go ahead and point that out. I'm actually wondering if there's a slide for it. Oh, yeah, here we go. It's actually the very next one. So if you go back into AP Insight, and again, I love your conversations. I'm just going to go ahead and answer Jean's since it's the next slide anyhow. Under the AP Insight, still under the Teach tab, so if you were still in that area, you're just going to scroll down a little bit more. And there are the performance tasks. Those have a Pogo-like-esque to them. They're not all going to be like that, right? Some of them are a little bit more lab-based. Some of them are a little bit, I feel like they've got a little bit more reading in them to a certain extent. They're all kind of mixed, which I really like. So if you go ahead and open the first one, you'll again find the teacher and student versions.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble flipping back and forth, so performance tasks, I see them now.
Yes, there you go. Yep, just stop me if you don't see them. And so Linda, having had a little bit more experience, and I'm just saying out loud what she's typing because her microphone's not working, she happens to be able to, since she's had more experience, she noticed that some of them have independent work as well as group work. So again, for those of you who have limited amount of class time, you might want to send these activities home with the students, tell them to do a certain amount, which is the independent section, and then when they come back to class, you guys can do the group sections together. In addition, for some of these activities, they're actually similar to things that I would do already. So rather than replace what I'm doing with these, I'm just using what I'm doing because I know the timing of it. Others, I shorten a little bit because they've actually done something similar in their first year of chemistry. And I think a couple of things that I do want to point out, again, for those of you who maybe haven't used them as much, they do offer some great particulate views, which, as you know, the new curriculum framework goes into. So that's been really nice, is to not have to create that stuff on my own or find pictures to use and create questions with. So it's nice that that's already been created for me. They've also got some really great questions with respect to graphing. So if you're looking at this one, you can see as you go through, like they've got some questions for graphing. And so there's lots of conceptual information before they actually go into the math. And I don't know how your students are, but my students will just literally eat up everything math-based and have no idea what the concept was. So I really like that section. And Linda's pointing out that she's actually, again, since she's had a little bit more experience with these particular Insight performance tasks, she's actually using some of those in her younger classes so that she's given them a leg up for her AP classes, which is great. All right, has everybody had a chance to then look at that performance task? You know, Michelle, no, I don't think that you are the only one who's never used Insight before. We're all coming with various degrees of how much we've used the program. I know Linda, I believe, was actually part of the like trying the documents out, so she's had a little bit more experience with it. And with it being so early in the school year and everything just piles up on you so quickly, by no means would we expect you to actually have already dove in. And so that's what this evening is for. Is, you know, we're picking a lovely concept that students just despise, and hoping that, you know, whether you're doing it now or you're doing it a little bit later, it gives you a head start into trying to insert it into your curriculum. And yes, Linda was responding to me and not not the question. All right, so we talked a little bit about this already, because I think I just hit the, nope, I didn't. All right, so we talked a little bit about this already, and I'm, based on time, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit about it. The performance task is, again, as I already said, really greatly related to the curriculum framework, especially with respect to those particle views. I love that. And again, I'm one of those people who, if I wanted a particle view, I would have been sitting at the computer like drawing pictures for just hours. So I do really love that. I love the science practices that they built in the students' ability to show off their skills. So by all means, this I think is a great way to, you know, figure out a lesson, especially if there's a lesson that you think is just not working as well, or you just want to try something different. I would say to try to go to one of these performance tasks. I guess the question that I would have for you guys, which is kind of coming up here, is can you picture in your mind, and if this is actually different than what it's actually posted here on our slide, but can you picture in your mind where you're going to place all of these pieces? Because again, you've got some great items, right? You've got the performance task, but in addition, you've got some areas where the students can think about those statements and get some really great metacognition going. You've got some areas where we want to have the student actually take the quiz, and then we still want to be able to analyze how the students are doing.
You know, I was just thinking yesterday when my shoulders were hurting me.
Well, you get them today.
Linda, I absolutely agree. And you seem like you've done so much with it. Are you sharing on Share What Works on the website? Okay, so Katie, you've already started lining up what you think you're going to use for the building blocks, the quizzes. That's great. All right, and Linda says she is starting to share on the website, and that's perfect. I'm sorry, did somebody just say something? I think I missed it. Okay. So you want to find a spot that you think you're going to be able to use the building block you were looking at. And I do know that some people have already started not just posting how things are going for them, but also sort of entire lesson plans. I know early on, I'm trying to think of who it was, but I want to say Kristen, but that sounds wrong all of a sudden. Early on, there was a number of pieces posted by, that just gave, Linda, it might have even been you, that gave some beautiful like roadmap to chemical kinetics and being able to sort of share that information with everybody. That was really amazing. Katie, that's a great question. She's asking, just whether or not the challenge area assessment would sort of be like a unit test. For me personally, I would say no, but that's because I like my unit test to be, I guess, a little bit bigger. So that equilibrium chapter sort of encompasses 3 of those challenge areas. And, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm wondering if maybe I should rethink that. But right now, looking at those, I don't know that I would use them as a unit test. Maybe as a formative assessment before I give my unit test, so that they've got some nice key areas. Those challenge area quizzes, or assessments rather, are really great in the sense that they're the written ones, where the students really have to write out their responses. And that's the part that I just super adore, is that they are spending a lot of time doing that. It helps you as well as an instructor to see how they're scored, so the rubrics that are included are really nice. And again, you can see, right, we've got some people who are doing just formative assessment with them. I love the idea of just using them as a baseline to help create new test items for your unit. And I know Jean had commented a little bit earlier that she'd love to see somebody who's doing Brown and LeMay post maybe their roadmap. And I am using Brown and LeMay, but I'm not using the Flynn labs. But I could probably also just post my roadmap just so that you can see kind of what I'm doing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just move on. This is that challenge area assessment again that we were just talking about, and I'm not going to have you guys write on this or answer these questions because it would take a lot of time. But absolutely, I agree. These are great to base questions off of. These are great to give as formative assessments before you actually give your unit test. So you've got some flexibility in there. Some people did say that they do use portions of this on their unit test, but again, I don't know if I'd use it as my unit test. I guess that would be the only difference. They do offer a great application to the content, which I think is something that is a definite takeaway to how these have been created. And again, you have that lovely, Proctor description of how to designate the points, which is a great way to also just talk to the kids about how to write their essays, about what would be looked for. So if you've never gotten a chance to score the AP exam, it at least gives you a good highlight of how those exams are in fact scored. So that will be beneficial, I think, to the students as well. All right, so again, I know that we're coming up on the time that they told me, which was about an hour and a half. As you just go through this PLC, hopefully you've gotten some information that you found was effective. And we, of course, would love to share that. So if anybody wants to share what they've learned that might help you use AP Insight with your students, that would be great. Okay, so you don't have to now, but that's okay because you can easily go into Share What Works. And again, if you haven't started looking at some of the things that Linda has done, definitely go there. Again, more people are starting to share information. Information about PLCs are there. If you forgot to ask something or you start thinking, later on that you wanted to ask more questions, by all means post on that site. That's a great, great place. We love to hear how you guys are doing, and clearly sometimes we just want to know, like, what order was it in? Did it work? Did you cut something? of course, you guys pointed out, like, what if you're running out of time and you just want to find out, like, what to do? Do share your experiences. If they're good, if they're bad, it doesn't matter, because again, somebody will hopefully respond and say what they tried that will help, and you'll of course be helping somebody else at the same time. So do make sure that you're taking some time to do that. We are going to be posting this probably online. So if you missed anything or you just want a quick overview as to where to find some stuff, I know there were some issues just remembering where to go. By all means, please feel free to do so. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stay here for a little while and just kind of answer any additional questions, or if you want to ask anything, regardless of whether it's about content or insight or anything else, for another few minutes. But meanwhile, you might want to take the survey, which will provide some information about just, how things went. Did you, find out everything you needed? Did you want more? And again, I realized that there was a little bit of a miscommunication with time frame, and maybe even like just, signing up. You guys didn't get a lot of the reading materials ahead of time, so I will definitely point those things out to our team. So if you can, just go ahead and take some time to fill out that survey. And then if you don't have any questions, you're free to sign off. But if you do have questions, you are welcome to stay. Or if you think of something later, by all means, feel free to also email AP Insight, and we'll try to respond as soon as we can.
Hey Brenda, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
It's Michelle.
Okay.
Is my understanding there's supposed to be a face-to-face training. I'm not sure where everybody's from and when that's supposed to be. I've emailed somebody a few times and I haven't gotten a response back. I received an email, I don't know, maybe like a month ago, and they asked us to respond to a meeting request, and they were trying to figure out 3 dates for a face-to-face training, and I did that, but then I had never have gotten a follow-up email. I thought it was supposed to be sometime in October, but any idea where I can find that out?
I will have Elaine contact you about that. I'm writing that down right now.
Okay.
But yes, you are offered a face-to-face, and if they asked you about dates, they might just be trying to find one of us to, to come out to you. Where are you located?
I'm in Delaware.
You're in Delaware. Okay.
Yeah.
So, right, so they've probably taken that information.
Okay, I emailed Deb Hansen. I'm pretty sure that's her name, and she's at the Delaware DOE. But she was the one that was sending us emails. But I emailed her a few times, and I never did hear anything back about when the face-to-face was going to be, just specifically for chemistry.
Sure. Yes, we've been running face-to-faces so that you guys can have some more experience and some, obviously, like a person in front of you. Let me contact Elaine and see kind of where that's at, and I will have her contact you as soon as she can.
That would be wonderful, because I definitely think I need to do a face-to-face, or would love to do a face-to-face to try to figure this whole thing out.
Absolutely. And I don't know that any of us are in Delaware, but if one of those dates works for us, we will happily come out and help you out. So let me try to have them get back to you, okay?
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure thing. No problem. Gina, I don't know how long it takes to have an email answered. They usually, as far as I've noticed, they're usually pretty good about answering pretty quickly, like within a day or two. But I am not exactly sure. And Jean, I do think that the face-to-face might cost extra, but some of the districts have actually already paid for that. And so if that's the case, then then it would of course just go through. But a lot of the districts just built that into whatever it was that became their contract for the AP Insight. But yeah, that's true. I think it does cost more. And Gina, the phone number, assuming nobody else needs the Survey Monkey, is right there. It's 212-373-8781. And again, I think when you dial that number, you end up getting Elaine? Question mark? That's who I've gotten in the past, at least. Thanks, Jean, for that feedback. I hope you have a great school year.
Thank you, Brenda.
Absolutely.
Do you know when they're offering the next webinar like this?
I do not. I believe that we were going to try to gather together everybody's feedback from the surveys,
Oh, I see, okay.
and then, right, and then try to decide like what other areas people are, interested in before we make that next decision. So I'm guessing probably in a couple more months. We've also asked for them to have it a little better organized in terms of like you guys being able to sign in and sign up. I don't know. It didn't seem to me like you guys had gotten the information like maybe as early as it might have been preferred. So we're working out a few of those bugs yet. So hopefully in just a couple more months, if you guys are interested, you should see some more information come out.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yep, thanks so much. Have a great school year.
You too, bye now.
Bye. Again, thank you, Linda, for all of your input. You have some great stuff on the site already, so thanks for sharing. And Gina, I flipped back to the survey in case you didn't get a chance to pick up that link.
Where are you guys going? My mom said to come.
Thank you, Gina. Have a great school year. Absolutely, Michelle. I hope so too. I'll have them contact you again. You're welcome. Have a great school year.